Why I'm Grateful for Bill Gates by Tom Seast. Kill Bill. Lately, Bill Gates has gotten lots of press coverage for his philanthropic work and his work in vaccinations and immunizations. Because I've decided to title my day's writing the way I have, I'm sure many of you are already ready to read the article or jump to conclusions and hang me by the hangman's noose. But bear with me and read on and see if you can see my point of view. Vaccine hate. It is my observation that most people in the past year that hate Bill Gates dislike his involvement in the development of vaccines or immunizations. Bill and his wife Melinda have been actively involved in the creation and the support of organizations that create and distribute immunizations and vaccinations around the globe for years. Due to the COVID pandemic, more people have become aware of this involvement. I'm not here to judge the motives of Bill and his wife, nor am I here to support or change minds. I'm merely documenting the reason for the trend. Vaccine love. I have also observed that most people that have been involved with the creation, research, and development of vaccinations and immunizations have loved Bill Gates over the years. And this isn't a new phenomenon or trend either. Most people that are involved in allopathic medicine tend to be in favor of vaccinations and immunizations and credit the work of Bill Gates and his wife with the saving of countless lives. I'm not here to judge the motives of Bill and his wife, nor am I here to support or change minds in relation to vaccinations and immunizations. Old-time hate and love. But the vaccine and immunization controversy is something that really never enters my mind when I think of Bill Gates, because I'm an old-timer that's been involved in the maturation of the computer industry for years, and my feelings and emotions come from my interactions with him in those times and from the memories that swirl in my mind. MS-DOS versus CP/M. I originally heard of Bill Gates back in the early 1980s when I was around 15 years old. I had been programming on my Atari 800 and Atari Basic, and I thought it was the cat's meow when it came to coding languages. I was getting involved with personal computers, and at the time, most businesses used either MS-DOS, which stands for Microsoft Disk Operating System, or CP/M, which stands for Control Program Monitoring. At the time, I felt CP/M was more universal in acceptance and available on more computer platforms, so I was a big fan of CP/M. But, like many other times in my life, I was wrong. CP/M's strengths became its weaknesses, and it faded slowly into obscurity, and MS-DOS became the powerhouse operating system of the day. And I admit that I was no fan of Bill Gates when I was a wee lad. PC versus Atari, Commodore, and Apple. About 5 years later, it became obvious that the IBM personal computer and compatible computers were growing in acceptance by businesses. But I knew that Atari, Commodore, and Apple computers of the day were far superior in hardware, operating system, and programming platforms. So I didn't like Bill Gates because his inferior products like MS-DOS, Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Excel were so widely accepted over less expensive, superior products. But, once again, I was wrong. Networking. Later on, around the time I got married in 1989, I learned I was wrong again, but not just because I got married and inherited a whole new human full of wise wisdom in my life. At the time, Novell NetWare was the leading network operating system that allowed personal computers to communicate with each other and other devices, and Microsoft LAN Manager was an up-and-comer. I preferred Novell as I found that it was technically superior. Novell NetWare ultimately failed in the marketplace and was replaced by later generations of Microsoft network operating systems. Meeting Bill. I met Bill Gates in the summer of 1989 while I worked for Abbott Laboratories as a network engineer. He flew in for a meeting with about 100 of us engineers and was very generous and kind with his time. He took the time to speak with each one of us and answered our questions. At that time of my life, I acted with more immaturity, and I'm confident my attitude and behavior in the meeting was likely businesslike, but also not kind, as I had obvious disdain for the man and his company. But we were both in the same field, following different paths and learning in different ways. Turbo Pascal versus MS Basic. After programming in Atari Basic, I had moved on to other forms of BASIC and eventually migrated to Turbo Pascal, which became my favorite programming language of the day. These languages are used to communicate with the computer and make it do things for you. I preferred Turbo Pascal to Microsoft BASIC and held on tightly until Turbo Pascal faded from existence early in my married life. But it will always be a favorite of mine. For better, for worse. It's about that point in my life where I finally started to change my ways. Database languages were the up-and-coming thing. Languages and software like Paradox, Btrieve, FoxPro, and DBase were all the standards and predominant players in the market at the time. Microsoft purchased FoxPro and eventually integrated it into their product Microsoft Access. While I didn't believe Microsoft Access to be a superior product, I figured I needed to establish a new trend in my life and bet on the eventual winner. For richer, for poorer. It was also about the same time in my life that I realized that the inferior products that Bill Gates' company produced, like Microsoft Windows, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Access, Visual Studio, and Visual Basic, would all eventually become the leaders in the marketplace. So I decided to ride the wave. I sold my soul for the surfboard and I started riding the wave. For richer, for poorer. True confessions. The dirty little secret, unless you live with me, is that I spend most of my days thinking poor thoughts about Bill Gates. It's not a healthy attitude, but when I'm tired, I lose my filter and I get tired of the decades-old bugs, the never-ending computer reboots, the endless hourglasses, and the lost time. I make poor choices and say and think things about the man that I only meant for 5 minutes back in 1989. And it humbles me. Once things calm down, I usually regret my actions because I know this behavior is immature and it reflects poorly on my character. I can dislike the history his former company produces, but I really shouldn't judge the man for actions that are presently out of his control. Grateful for Bill. I'm honestly grateful for how Bill Gates has influenced my life. Because of him and his company's products, I've been able to raise and support a family. I've been able to travel and explore a world, both in person and virtually. Because the products tend to fail and need programmed and enhanced, I've been able to make a living for my 40-plus year career in software programming and computer work. While I've been a resentful child of my behavior for most of these years, I'm forever grateful for the opportunities and challenges they have provided and do provide me on an ongoing basis. Bill and Melinda Gates. It is not my responsibility or place in life to try to convince you to think a certain way when it comes to Bill and Melinda Gates and their humanitarian efforts and their efforts when it comes to immunizations and vaccinations. I don't know either person well enough to make a sound judgment when it comes to their motivations, their desires, or their passions. I could jump to conclusions and behave poorly again, but I'm trying to be a better human. Time, history, and other people will have their own opinions and motives regarding the matter, and I'm not here to judge that either. My challenge. Every day I wake up and my body is alive and pulsing on the sunny side of the soil. I find myself challenged in many ways. I'm grateful that I'm not responsible for large organizations and financial resources like Bill. His days must be daunting and demanding, and he faces opposition at every turn. I challenge myself to be persistent, focused, market aware, and market driven like Bill. I also challenge myself to take more time for my family, friends, and acquaintances and understand their needs, desires, and passions. I can't change or influence Bill Gates, but I am present in a world where he has preeminence and influence, whether I like it or not. I am imperfect human with flaws, married to my nearly perfect wife and companion, and I can influence those that I meet and interact with. My challenge to you. If you have read or watched this and have stayed with it until this point, you're a winner, and winners win. I don't know your circumstances, and I'm certainly not here to judge you. Within you, you have responsibilities and circles of influence. You can affect and change in those you interact with through your actions and through the lessons you teach in life. Focus on the things that you can change and help others do the same. And, like Bill Gates and myself, history and time will tell the story of your greatness and the challenges that you've overcome to accomplish wonderful things to influence people. Me. I hope that you have found my message, my story, and my confession for the day stimulating and motivational, and that it might provide you some helpful insight. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. If you like my writing or my reading, feel free to follow me at the links below.